Welcome to the Gentle Business Rebellion, a space for thoughtful women entrepreneurs over 50 who have outgrown the business they've built. In each episode, we explore what it looks like to redesign your life through a gentle pivot by rediscovering who you are in the season, redefining your business and what it needs to look like now, and realigning your work to support your life. Today, we're going to take a look at how to start your gentle business pivot, or how do you jumpstart your own gentle business rebellion. This may or may not surprise you, but we start with rest. Now, why? Because we are tired. We live in a society that is loud, so much information coming at us, and if you throw in social media, if you throw what's coming in into your inbox, AI and how we use it or we don't use it, let alone all the ideas in our own heads. There's so much noise coming at us. Layer on top of that, if you are going through some sort of transition, or you're going through some sort of crisis, or life is just really full, maybe you've got grandkids showing up all the time, which is a great thing, but it can be a distraction when you're trying to work. Maybe you're going through a health crisis, or you're just leaving a time of life where health was a major issue. Maybe you're like me and you've gone through an intense caregiving season that has now come to an end and you're exhausted. So when you look at these transitions, when you look at these intense experiences, you cannot come out the other side the same person. I am not the same person who started her business back in 2008. I am not the same person who went through a very intense period of caregiving for her mother. I'm not. It's just not possible. I have friends who are going through really intense caregiving seasons of their own, who are realizing they have to adjust and pivot and include rest into their plan in order to get their life back, in order to be able to refocus on their business. I have other friends who have had to move and moving to a different state, or they are going through their own series of health crises that are just changing how they work, how they view their work, and viewing the type of work that they want to do. For women who are over 50, who are ready to do something that's deeper, more impactful, it takes rest because we are tired. Our brains are in decision fatigue. We are emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally tired, and we're just tired in all the ways. And so when you've gone through all of that, you are a different person, and you need to learn to rest in order to recognize the changes, to identify them, to slow down long enough to hear what you are thinking, what you are feeling, to actually hear God's still small voice that is trying to get your attention, and making sure that you are showing up in your business in the way God created you, rather than being influenced by all the noise that is flying at you. And because we are nurturers and we are caregivers, we forget to rest. We put others' needs before our own. And that can be our clients. That can be our kids, our grandkids, our parents, our siblings, anyone in our community that is needing help. A lot of times we want to be the ones there to help. But in that helping, we tend to lose sight of who we are, what we need, and we forget to rest. And then also, when you think about it, rest is an action step. And there are different types of rest. So a rest, I'm not talking necessarily here about going and taking a nap or going to bed earlier. Rest comes in different shapes and sizes. Sometimes we need mental rest. We need to be able to shut off all the noise, and all of our mental gears are whirring so fast that we can't rest. Sometimes it is just sitting down and relaxing. Sometimes it is turning off all your digital devices and going and sitting outside. But sometimes it's just taking a few minutes to sit there and enjoy a hot cup of coffee or a lovely mug of tea, or sitting down and just making sure we're drinking enough water. Rest may mean a few minutes. Rest may mean that you need extra time to get away and just get away from the office. Stop thinking about your business. Go have some fun. Go have a great conversation with a loved one or a friend. But we need to start with rest, because in order to hear our own voice, in order to realize and understand, what do I really think about my business? What do I do? The problem I solve. How do I help the people that I love to serve solve that problem? And it's very hard to do when you're constantly on the go mentally. We live in a world where our businesses are knowledge-based work. And so we love ideas, we love research, we love creating. And these are all wonderful things. But when they get to the point where we can't shut our own brain off in order to think and feel and view our business with a clear head, that's a problem. But you are also dealing with health issues. You are also dealing with caregiving. You're also dealing with family matters, let alone being a wife, a daughter, a sister, an auntie, a grandmother. So we need to start with rest. We need to slow down long enough that we can take a breath, that we can hear ourselves think, and we can start thinking clearly about our business. So once you understand why we need to rest, and your reasons may be unique to you, you may have other reasons that you know you need to rest, but you keep resisting it. But once you understand that you need to rest, how do you get started? One of the first things I tell all of my clients when they first come into my world and looking for help understanding their next step, I suggest they go on an unsubscribe mission for a week. That each day for a week, they go in and unsubscribe from 2 to 3 emails coming into their inbox or going into their social media profiles like Instagram or Facebook and unfollowing or muting people that are causing distractions on those social media channels. Because a lot of times we get caught up in comparisonitis of what shows up in our inbox or in our social media feeds. And it's so easy to get discouraged and get caught up in what we're trying to do. We start wanting to do everything to fix our business. Or we start seeing all these sales messages of these wonderful offers that we think, oh, that's what I've been looking for. That's going to solve my problem. That's going to help me figure out what's next in my business. But the problem is that once you get that comparisonitis or you get that urge to buy, a lot of times you're getting information from very different points of view and often are conflicting points of view. The person in your email may say, in order to have a successful business, you do this, ABC. But then the person in social media says, no, actually, if you want a successful business, you need to do XYZ. And when you get that kind of conflicting information, what does that do to your brain? What does that do to you emotionally and mentally? You get stuck, or you start doing buying all the things and downloading all the offers and trying to make your own way forward. But that doesn't work because you're unique. Your situation is unique. Your set of skills is unique. And so I want you to consider going on an unsubscribe mission to slow down the amount of information that is coming into your inbox, to reduce what's coming into your social media feeds. Because a lot of times those are not helpful, they're not inspirational, they're quick dopamine hits that leave us exhausted because we never slow down long enough to turn off our thinking brain. I am a huge proponent of scheduling mini retreats. Now, a mini retreat can be a micro or a mini retreat. I would call a micro retreat of setting aside 15 minutes to go experience brewing a mug of tea and then sitting down there and enjoying the fragrance of the tea, holding that warm mug in your hands, and then enjoying the lovely flavor. That's a micro retreat. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 10, 15 minutes. Something that slows you down to step aside from your work, step aside from the cares of the day, and just take a moment to breathe, to be in the moment, to enjoy the moment. A mini retreat usually is going to take 1 to 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer, but it's nothing complicated that's going to be expensive or require you to schedule some faraway destination to get out of your own head, get out of your office, and go have a retreat. For a mini retreat, I suggest things like going outside for a long walk. I love the idea of taking a photo noticing walk. And this is where you take your phone, you ignore everything but the phone portion, and you choose, am I going to look for flowers? Am I going to look for something blue? Am I going to look for something red? Am I going to look for growth? Am I going to look up or look down? And you start taking photos of whatever you've decided to focus on. This slows down your thinking brain. This slows down your pace because now you're looking. Now you're exploring. Now you're having some fun. And when you can do it outside in a beautiful location, even better. A mini retreat can also be just a time to set aside having devotions for a little bit longer, pulling out a journal. I have several guides on mini retreats where you read through an article and then you respond to it through journaling. Or I have gratitude journals where you are walked through a series of steps to go from reading scripture to writing out a prayer and journaling your gratitude list for the day. It can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be anything expensive, but I highly recommend whenever possible, you do it analog. Shut off your devices, shut off the noise, and just enjoy the quiet of being in the moment, doing something creative or doing something just different from your everyday activities. And when you do that, start taking these intentional breaks and literally make an appointment on your calendar. I am going to take a break. Maybe it's that mug of tea during the day. Maybe you go take a mini retreat throughout the week. Maybe you do take a longer retreat during the month or the year. Maybe it's simply a digital detox. Maybe you're just not being on social media, getting off of your computer and minimally on your phone for a day or two. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it gives you some sort of physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual rest. Because we can fill ourselves up with ideas and opinions and to-do lists and next steps that we start to lose ourselves in the process. The goal here is to learn to rest long enough for your thinking brain to turn off. And that's not easy to do. Years ago, I was in a class looking at different ways to manage stress and anxiety. And one of the exercises they had us do is we took about 30 seconds, and we had a piece of paper and we just wrote down everything we could think of that was sitting on our brain or sitting on a to-do list and write it out for 30 seconds. I came up with a lot, way more than I thought I would. I think I had about 15 to 20 items just in those 30 seconds. But if you look at how much we do that throughout the day, that could easily be 700, 800, 900 thoughts of ideas in our brains per hour, let alone the day, the week, the month. So when we learn ways to rest and we learn ways to shut off all the noise coming at us, that's when you can start thinking clearly about how your business is doing, where does it need to go, and how are you doing in your business, and how do you want to be in your business moving forward. When you're doing this, you are finding your pace. You are making time and creating space to do what you need to do the deep work, to think clearly. And when you can add in that you're doing it at your pace, not what I'm telling you, or what another coach is telling you, or a coworker is telling you, or what somebody in social media is telling you. Your pace is what's important here. My counselor said something to me recently that really helped me understand some things that I was going through, some things that we had been talking about, because I was having some difficulty finding some rest and shutting down my thinking brain. She said, finding your pace is a need, not a want. Because when you are working at an unsustainable pace, your blinders get put on so that you're not really paying attention to what else is going on either side of you. You are focused on the goal and you're going after it. Again, this is not a bad thing. But when you're already tired and you're already overwhelmed and you've already got so much on your plate and on your to-do list, that those blinders can just keep us focused on moving forward one step in front of the other without taking a break. And rest at this point helps us see the lies of toxic hustle. Toxic hustle is when hustle becomes the norm rather than the exception. I'm not anti-hustle. There are times we need to go forward a little bit quicker. There are times that we have a deadline we need to meet, or we are getting ready to take a weekend away. So there's some stuff that we need to get done. That's fine. That's for a specific reason, a season, or a purpose. But when that becomes the normal way of living and doing business, that's what I call toxic hustle. And toxic hustle lies to us. Toxic hustle tells us that this is so important and nothing else is. Or everything is resting on our shoulders. And if we don't get it done, it's not going to get done properly, or it might not get done at all, or we're going to fall behind. Learning to start with rest and slowing down long enough to hear those lies, to hear what we're thinking. We're going, you know what? It doesn't all sit on my shoulders. You know what? That deadline is great. And there are times that deadline is firm, but there are other times, you know what? I can move that around a little bit. Or it helps you look at your priorities much more clearly. That yes, that deadline is important, but now I know what I need to say no to or postpone or say later so I can focus on that particular deadline and get it done. But you can't do that when you are inundated with noise, to-do lists, and your own brain on overdrive. So this is why we start with rest. Because I firmly believe that rest is what makes it possible to build a simple and sustainable business that makes an impact. Because if you want to have energy to make the impact and show up for your clients in the best possible way, you can't do that from a place of toxic hustle, at least not for very long. It's not simple, it's not sustainable, and definitely not gentle. So if you want a simple and sustainable business, if you want a gentle business, if you would like to start your own gentle business rebellion, you need to start with rest. If this is something that you know you need in your life, check out the show notes. I'll have some links for you to some resources that show you how to learn to add rest or start practicing rest and adding it to your schedule in your business. I would love to help you show you how rest can make a difference in your business as you develop a simple, sustainable business that makes an impact. I'll see you in the next episode.